The Islanders roster on defense is more or less the same this year. So how is the team going to get better? We have two ways that Islanders can improve their defense. Plus, tragedy strikes the hockey world, and it does touch the Islanders organization. We've got all that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We've got a busy show ahead, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, feel free to email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long during the offseason. That includes hirings, firings, trade rumors, free agency, the draft. If it's happening to the New York Islanders, we'll cover it for you here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. And it's great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. I know I had mentioned Friday we would do a mailbag show. Today I'm going to push the mailbag show up until Wednesday. So no, I haven't forgotten about it. But you still now have a couple of days to get your mailbag questions in. I'm hoping we can get a couple more, but more importantly, needed to talk a little bit about some of what happened in the last few days in the hockey world, and just wanted to make sure we had time to address that. Before we get to that news, though, the New York Islanders roster, because of the limitations that the salary cap has placed on the team, the defensive core is more or less the same. And what we're looking at is 7 players on defense who are likely to start the season on the 22 or 23-man roster, depending on how the cap falls out. So you've got Noah Dobson, Alexander Romanov, Adam Pelech, Ryan Pollock, Scott Mayfield. Then you have Mike Riley, and then Samuel Bolduc most likely will start the season as the 7th defenseman. Gone from last year's roster, well, Robert Bortuzzo, we'll talk a little bit more about him later on, and Sebastian Aho, both of whom have now signed elsewhere. And we all know that clearing the puck out of the defensive zone and playing smarter in your own end are things that the Islanders needed to improve upon. We all knew that. And again, with the roster more or less the same at this point, how do we improve in those areas? And after thinking about it, there were a couple of ways that I think the Islanders things that they could do that will help the team defense. One of them is structural. The other one is just sort of factual, and it depends, obviously, on what happens over the course of the season. The structural one is easy. You now will have a team that has spent an entire training camp and preseason, plus a little less than half of last season, in Patrick Roy's system. And look, let's face it, under Patrick Roy, the defense, the team defense, did get a little bit better. And Roy emphasizes, again, a little more team speed, a little bit more positioning, and making the safe and simple play to get the puck out of the zone. We know how big a problem that was for the Islanders over the course of the last 2 seasons especially. And being more comfortable in Patrick Roy's system, I think will take things another step further in that development. Now, adjusting to it mid-season, it took a little while. You know, it was the last 37 games of the season that Roy was behind the bench. You got to figure there's an adjustment period involved. It doesn't just click right away. So, again, we saw improvement, but it took a little time. Now, with the players more or less the same, the only new players on the roster, theoretically, and again, you never know what happens between now and October 10th when the season starts, but you have Anthony Duclair and Maxim Siplakov as 2 new forwards on the roster, but no new talent on the blue line. So it's going to have to be systemic. It's going to have to be that this team is more comfortable with the new system of Patrick Roy and that it becomes second nature. And, you know, that can result in a decent improvement in clearing the puck out of the zone. Because, look, every day, as you know, how often last year during the season, especially the first, let's say 45, 50 games, how many times were we talking about the Islanders' painful struggles of trying to clear the puck out of their own zone and their inability to just make that simple play and transition from defense to offense? It had to be done better. It was one of the reasons, I think, that the fact that the team was not able to correct that when Lane Lambert was the coach, that was one of the reasons that Lane Lambert was let go. And we saw the Islanders, and especially in the first 45, 50 games, allowing not just too many shots, but too many high danger chances. And we saw the team really struggling to clear the puck out. And you would see the other team having the puck in the Islander zone for 45 seconds, a minute plus. And, that tired out Ilya Sorokin. It tired out the players who were on the ice because they couldn't make a change. And it resulted in far too many quality scoring chances. The other thing, as far as Patrick Roy is concerned, is spacing. Not giving the opposition so much time and space as they enter the offensive zone. If you have to either dump the puck in, or you're not entering the offensive zone with speed and space to make a pass and make a play, that is going to result in fewer high danger scoring chances. And these are things that a veteran team should be able to learn and adjust to in the relatively short amount of time that training camp and then that the preseason will provide. And then again, I think as the regular season progresses, this will become more and more second nature. The other thing that I think will improve the Islanders defensively, hopefully, and again, you don't know until it actually happens, but that's being healthy again. You look at what happened last season. You look at the numbers from last season. And, on the blue line, Ryan Pollock, Adam Pelech, they each played 58 games. That means they missed 24 games each. We know Scott Mayfield played 41 games, but only one of them was he healthy in. If he can give you 65, 70, 75 games this year and be back to his pre-injury, he played 40 games on a bum ankle, broken ankle. That's taking one for the team, but obviously it hampered his ability to play his game and, contribute offensively. He had only 5 assists, no goals in those 41 games. And more importantly, to be that big physical presence in the defensive zone and to clear pucks out, you didn't have that. And realistically speaking, it hurt the team. And that's why they shut him down midseason. It wasn't that he wasn't trying. I give him so much credit after the fact, after learning that he was playing on a broken ankle. But I think the team made the right choice in shutting him down. And then the wild card, perhaps, in addition to keeping as many of the 6 starters healthy as long as you can, and injuries are inevitable. But the other thing is the potential growth and development of Samuel Bolduc. And, you hear coaches and scouts talking about Bolduc, and they say that a lot of it is confidence related. If Bolduc can get off to a good start, can get into some games, have a good training camp, a good preseason, maybe he cracks the starting lineup, but even if he doesn't, or even if he's only in there when someone else needs a breather or is banged up a little bit, getting his confidence up could take his game to another level, and that could either replace, let's even say Mike Riley for a few games, or B, whoever's injured could be replaced, and it just would be an upgrade over having an injured Scott Mayfield on the ice or having guys who are struggling on the ice. So those are sort of the 2 main components as to how the Islanders can improve their defense, even though they're bringing back essentially the same players. Now, Aho, I liked Sebastian Aho. I liked his effort. I liked him as a guy, but as a player, he was ideally a 7th defenseman. I'm not overly concerned about his departure unless a couple of injuries hit, and then the Islanders will need both cap space and depth to bring up somebody again to replace him. And then again, I don't think that's a big worry. And for the Islanders, those are the keys to improving the defense, and that'll make Ilya Sorokin better, and having a healthy and more rested Ilya Sorokin, who's not facing 40 shots a game and high danger chance, that'll help the defense as well, because he'll bail them out more frequently than he did a year ago. All of it is connected, and these are ways the Islanders defense can be better. And the penalty kill can be better with the new coach, Tommy Albaline, back there. So there are ways that this team could be better, and it's important that they are better on defense if they hope to be better next year. All right, more to get to on today's show. Some tragedy hitting the hockey world, including a former Islanders farmhand who was tragically killed on Thursday night. We'll talk about that, plus the Robert Bortuzzo situation, and for our Islanders' birthday of the day, an undrafted and unheralded forward who ended up scoring 40 goals for the Islanders in his final season with the team. He was with the team for a good chunk of the 2000s. Let's see if you can guess who this player is. We've got that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you today. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market NFL game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. So check that out at FanDuel if you're a fan of any NFL team or who doesn't play in the New York market, or you want to keep track of the live games of all the teams on your fantasy all the players on your fantasy football team. This plan is for you. Just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com to get started on this great free offer. FanDuel.com. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NHL podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day with national experts and local insight on every team in the league. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, tragedy striking late Thursday night, and the announcement was made Friday. Just awful news that Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew Gaudreau killed while riding bicycles. Their bicycles were hit by a car by an alleged drunk driver in Salem, New Jersey, which is in South Jersey. And they were there to be groomsmen at their sister's wedding, which was supposed to be held this past weekend. And both of them were tragically killed in the accident. And, you know, Johnny Gaudreau, nicknamed Johnny Hockey, just one of those great feel-good stories. A guy who, I mean, the nickname, I think, says so much. He exuded the joy of playing the game and how much he loved it. He was a fourth-round pick, listed generously at 5'9", and managed to become a 40-goal, more than 100-point per season player during the course of his career, was outstanding in Calgary, came to Columbus and played very well there, was a star along with his brother Matthew at Boston College. And, you know, here he is, 31 years old with a wife and two young children. Matthew had his wife expecting their first child, and now both of them are gone far too soon. And if you want to hear more about the legacy of the Gaudreau brothers, the Monday edition of Locked On NHL, which I do host, has perspectives from our local hosts, all at BC, Columbus, and Calgary, talking not just about the Gaudreau brothers on the ice, which is an amazing story, but also off the ice. Now, Matthew Gaudreau, 4 years at Boston College from 2013 to 2017, and then was in the Islanders organization, played for the Bridgeport, then Sound Tigers for parts of 2 seasons, and spent parts of 3 seasons playing for the Worcester Railers of the ECHL, and hung up his skates after the 2021-2022 season, and now having this happen to him, just an utter tragedy for the Gaudreau family and for the hockey world. And, you know, the Islanders organization kind of speaking out, and they released a statement. The entire New York Islanders organization is deeply saddened by the passing of both Johnny and Matthew Gaudreau. We offer our sincerest condolences to the Gaudreau family. They were both tremendous ambassadors for the sport of hockey and even better people in the community. We ask that everyone keep the Gaudreau family and all these 2 great young men came into contact with in your thoughts and prayers. So that was a statement by the Islanders organization, and now just terrible news that both of them have passed away at such a young age. And I think, you know, if this reminds us of anything, 2 things I think come to mind. Number one, as much as I love hockey, it is a form of entertainment. And, you know, we take our hockey very seriously here at Locked On Islanders. One thing I try never to do on this show, I will criticize a player or a member of the management team when I feel it's deserved, but I will never get personal about it. I will say so-and-so is struggling with this aspect of his game, or I feel that the approach of the front office is flawed because, but I'm never going to get personal. And I think we all have to remember that the players, the members of the management team, all of them, they're human beings. Most of them are doing their best and trying their best. And even if they're not playing well or don't agree with that, we don't agree with the way they build the team, I'm not going to stoop to personal attacks, and I'm not going to say nasty things about them as people. And I guess the other thing that we take away from this is that keep your loved ones and the people who you care about close, because we do not know what is coming next. Tomorrow is never guaranteed for anyone. And just again, my condolences and thoughts and prayers going to the Gaudreau family and everybody, all of their friends and family, and the people who, their ex-teammates, all the people who were touched by what they did both on and off the ice. It just hurt. It really just hurt. Alan Furing, the broadcaster for Bridgeport and who fills in whenever Brendan Burke is unavailable on Islanders broadcast, he posted on X, absolutely sick to my stomach. I'll never forget Matt's professional debut with Bridgeport and his gentle personality off the ice. He and Johnny were special people. Please keep this family in your prayers. So, again, our deepest sympathy to the Gaudreau families. And, yeah, just a tragedy that rocked the hockey world over the last few days. And I definitely did want to mention Matthew Gaudreau's connection to the Islanders organization and just the way the hockey world is dealing with this tragedy. When we come back, Robert Bortuzzo has signed with another team. He will definitely not be back with the Islanders to start this season. We'll have that, plus our Islanders birthday of the day coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends. It's providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NHL in the description, so you don't need to search. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So it was announced over the weekend as well that former Islanders defenseman Robert Bortuzzo has signed with the Utah Hockey Club for the upcoming season. Bortuzzo, acquired by the Islanders for a 7th-round pick in December after injuries hit the blue line with Adam Pelech and Ryan Pollock both out of the lineup. And then you had Scott Mayfield struggling, and then he was out of the lineup. So they traded for Bortuzzo. He played 23 games, did not register a point until the playoffs, although he did have the primary assist on Matthew Barzal's game winner in double overtime of Game 4, the only playoff win that the Islanders had this season. Bortuzzo, 35 years old. And, you know, here was a guy who expressed an interest in coming back if the Islanders would have wanted him. But realistically, there wasn't any cap room for Robert Bortuzzo. And with the depth that the team had, well, not even the depth so much as the lack of cap room, that was a big factor. Now, he got hurt himself January 2nd. He missed, time in the lineup that way. So he would have played more than the 23 games, had he remained healthy. And ironically, the Islanders open their season October 10th against Utah HC, and it's possible Bortuzzo will be in the lineup for Utah. Now, what he signed was a 1-year, 2-way contract. So he'll make the league minimum, according to published reports, if he plays in Utah. But if he is sent down to the AHL, he will get I believe it's $450,000 a year. So it's a two-way, one-year deal for Robert Bortuzzo, and we certainly wish him all the best, except on those two occasions where he could be playing the Islanders. Again, the question is not as much to me that losing Robert Bortuzzo is tragic, although I think he was a solid contributor, but it's, again, another physical player who is not going to be back with this team. And I'm not saying keeping Matt Martin, Cal Clutterbuck, and Robert Bortuzzo would have been the right move for the Islanders, but I think the underlying question remains, does this team have enough physicality entering the year and the ability to stand up for their teammates if and when that is necessary? We're going to have to see, how that plays out over the course of the season. But right now, it is a little bit of a question mark. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And today is the 51st birthday of former Islanders forward Jason Blake, the Moorhead, Minnesota native, generously listed at 5'10", 180 pounds, went to the University of North Dakota for 3 years, was not drafted, made his NHL debut with the LA Kings in 1998-99, scored a goal in his first NHL game, but joined the Islanders early in the 2000-2001 season, stayed with the team through 2006-2007, had a 25-goal season, a 22-goal season, a 28-goal season, and then in his final year with the Isles, 40 goals and 69 points in 82 games. But after that, he signed with Toronto and finished his NHL career with Anaheim. And we all know Jason Blake also had to overcome some, rare medical conditions that he was able to recover from and resume his NHL career. One of Jason Blake's better games as an Islander, well, how about March 19th, 2004 at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, Islanders hosting the Minnesota Wild. Dwayne Rollason, former Islander, in goal for Minnesota. Rick DiPietro, the goalie for the Islanders. And in the first period, Jason Blake gets the scoring started, his 20th of the year. Yanni Niinema and Michael Pekka with the assist. That made it 1-0 Islanders. In the second period, Islanders shorthanded, but Jason Blake strikes again. Dave Scatchard, the only assist on the shorty to make it 2-0 Islanders after 2. And then in the third period, after Andrew Burnett made it a 2-1 hockey game, Jason Blake completes the hat trick with an empty net goal with 1 second left. Mark Parrish and Dave Scatchard with the assist. Islanders down Minnesota 3-1, 16 saves for Rick DiPietro. Islanders out shooting Minnesota 24-17 in this game. But for Jason Blake, 3 goals on 4 shots on goal. He was a +3. He had the game-winning goal. And, of course, he played 18 minutes and 48 seconds, getting all 3 goals in the 3-1 win. And Jason Blake, always a great guy to watch. He was fun. He was enthusiastic. He never stopped hustling. And he was a really solid New York Islander during his tenure with the team. Again, we're going to be back on Wednesday, and we will do our mailbag episode then. So, again, LockedOnIslanders@gmail.com or DM me on X if you want to ask a question for the mailbag. We will get to them on Wednesday. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Always great to talk Islanders hockey with all of you. Have a great Labor Day and a great holiday and a great couple of days until we're back on Wednesday. Stay safe, everybody. And, of course, let's go Islanders.